One big thing about real estate is pricing. There's so many theories out there on how to do pricing. In fact, we study it in business school all the time because pricing is more of a mythology than a science. And as somebody who likes to look at numbers and quantitatively and analyze things to come up with my own forecast or assumptions on what price it should be, pricing is an opinion. So let's dive into some theories that exist. We're gonna do a two-part series. This first part is all on the seller side. We're gonna go to the seller's psychology and pricing strategies, and then we're gonna talk about the buyer's perspective, the buyer's theories for pricing strategies, all in real estate. So stay tuned. Okay, when it comes to the seller side, there's really three things that I tell my seller clients, okay? Number one, the big one, pricing strategies themselves. We're gonna dive a little bit into that in a minute. But the other big thing that we forget are positioning strategies and timing strategies. And those latter two, though a product of price itself, really help dictate the final sales price. And if we forget to analyze and look at strategies for both positioning and timing and just focus on pricing strategies, well, ignoring those last two can have huge consequences to the final return on your investment and the sales price that you're gonna get. So let's start with pricing strategies. There's three things I like to look at with pricing strategies. The first, almost every agent is gonna do what they call a CMA, a comparative market analysis. It's a market report. What they're doing is they're looking at comps or comparable sales. Usually they're looking at, 2 to 4 to 6 sales that have occurred in the last year or 2 years. They're looking at these sales and they're looking for similar attributes and features that are similar to the property, the subject property itself. And we're trying to evaluate if this sold for that, how close of a sale is that to the subject? And does that dictate the value there? Again, this is an opinion, right? You could interview 10 different agents and they're gonna have a different opinion of how that's gonna come about. But there are patterns here. And usually those patterns can give us a relatively more narrow price range for the pricing strategy itself. So what agents do is they look at features such as size, location, condition, features within the home, things that are related to the subject, and then they make adjustments to make their competitive price analysis. Now, this is very different than another pricing strategy that we see in real estate, and that is cost plus pricing. What's funny about cost plus pricing to me is in MBA school, we spend so much time talking about don't do cost plus pricing. Yet the one industry that does that is real estate. New construction sector of real estate, new builds. What builders do is they say, whatever I throw in the basket, this is the cost to build a house, plus whatever percentage that they're intending to make, that's the cost of the home. Usually it's between 10 and 15% is what a builder is charging, and that's what their return is. Of course, the 10 and 15% isn't their raw return because they have other overhead costs in there. I think NAHB says that their average on average is usually about 3% after they factor in the 10 or 15. But neither here nor there. The point is they use cost plus pricing. And why is that important? Because often when we do resales and do the CMA for a resale, we're using the cost of new as the basis in a comp and sale for justifying the price of the resale. And so since the new construction all does cost plus pricing, isn't it interesting then that we use that to then do a CMA on a resale? So next to comparative market analysis, the CMA, and the cost plus pricing, the third thing is psychological pricing. Now this could be very important to real estate and thinking and understanding that this is not a quantitative number, that this is a valuation, that we need to create value in the way that we market and present a property because people react emotionally. People buy and purchase things with emotion. It's a psychology. The value that we perceive something to have is the value that it sells for. So this is very important in real estate as well, right? Because look, we want to create value out of a home. A home that's located next to a sewer plant might cost the same as a home to build next to a park. Yet one and the other are not gonna get the same price because buyers buy by emotion and they're not gonna pay the same for the one next to the park, next to the one next to the sewer plant. So we need to understand that we need to get these value attributes in the property as a big part of that psychological factor. This could be something like features, location, size, but it also could be the price itself, right? Look, in retail, we might say something is $5. But if it was priced at $4.99, that single digit psychologically makes it look like it's less expensive. And it gets more important as we transition from pricing strategies to positioning strategies. Positioning strategies are another big topic that we need to talk about. Look, for positioning strategies, one big thing that we can look at is price banding. What is price banding? Price banding says that if we have a whole handful of homes in a certain segment, say 500 to 525, one strategy might be For our subject, we might price it at $527 or $490, either right under those other band or right over it, so that we're not directly competing within that same segment of where all those other homes are priced. We're setting ourselves out with a differentiator in a different price range. So we're not positioned all against all the other properties that are within this one market segment and price range. This can have some huge opportunities, but positioning is also helpful because I like to position against other homes that are available. So if we're looking at the $500,000 price range, and then there's 5 other homes at $500,000, we need to price our home to compete with those other 5 homes that are at $500,000. What features do they have? Does that make us better? Does that make us as competitive? Or does it make us less competitive based on what they're priced at and what they have? And that is where pricing can be a very big part of positioning strategies and looking at what's on, coming off, and coming on the market. The third big strategy is timing strategy. Timing is so important to getting the maximum return on your investment because there's different market cycles, but there's a whole bunch of other factors that go into timing strategies. And then the first is on economic considerations. Look, interest rate predictions, tax implications, whether it's an election year, all these things can make a big difference into the timing strategy and then the potential return that you get on a home. There are differences in the micro and macro level. I mean, those are mostly macro considerations, but in the micro level, there might be ordinances that restrict rentals or other considerations. So the economic component is a very important component of timing. Another consideration for timing is real estate development and infrastructure improvements. For example, maybe a municipality is doing a street improvement project or a park improvement project, or they're adding an amenity to that part of town that will make a huge impact on the price of the home. Maybe they're adding another school. Schools are a big spur for real estate. So those sort of timing considerations can also be very important. But the biggest one, perhaps the biggest one that we always think of is the seasonal timing strategies. Because seasonally, we usually have one market throughout the US, and that is in the spring. Another season one here locally is the fall market because we see a lot of university hiring and other jobs that are doing hiring at the end of the year, doing repositions. So for my local market, I have a spring and fall market. And knowing when those two markets are is very important, but also knowing when the markets are not is equally as important, because I thought it was interesting when I first got into real estate 15 years ago that the 2 slowest months of the year are August and July, in that order. August and July are the 2 slowest months for buyers, not January, August and July. It's too hot, it's too close to a school season. People just do not want to do a move. So knowing when the market is and when the market is not hot is a very important strategy for figuring out timing. But here's the thing on timing. Most timing is related to personal circumstances. The seller has to move or they've bought a new home and the timing just can't be controlled. And in those instances, you have to work on your first two, your positioning and your pricing strategies, because you can't make a strategic move based on timing, whether that's seasonal or economic, or whether there's infrastructure considerations. Timing fundamentally could be market dependent. So make sure you reach out to your agent. Look, the bottom line is real estate is a risk and speculation because it's a dynamic market. It's constantly changing. So understanding what you need to do, you need an expert for that. Then analyze your personal situation, your own risk tolerance before diving into the real estate. Hey, look, if you want to learn more about pricing strategies, subscribe down below because our next video is going to get it all into the buyer's perspective. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.